My sister Emma's housewarming party was everything she'd ever dreamed of, a sprawling suburban home filled with neighbors, family, friends, and the kind of domestic bliss she'd been chasing since college. At 31, I was the only single woman among the guests, and Emma made sure everyone knew it. "Welcome to our forever home," Emma announced to the assembled crowd, her arm wrapped around her husband Jake's waist. "This is what happens when you prioritize family over everything else. Some people chase careers, but we chose love." The subtle dig wasn't lost on anyone. I stood near the kitchen island, holding a glass of wine and watching Emma hold court in her dream house. The guests nodded approvingly as she gestured toward family photos covering every surface: wedding pictures, baby announcements, vacation snapshots documenting their picture-perfect life. "Dr. Rachel here is our family's career woman," Emma continued, introducing me to her new neighbors. "She's so dedicated to medicine that she's never had time for a husband or children. 31 years old and married to her job." Mrs. Patterson from next door clucked sympathetically. "That's so sad, dear. All that education, but what's the point if you're alone? A woman needs family to feel complete." I'd heard variations of this conversation at every family gathering for the past 5 years. My surgical residency, fellowship, and now my position as pediatric cardiac surgeon were consistently framed as obstacles to happiness rather than achievements. My family saw my long hours and dedication as character flaws, not professional excellence. "Rachel works all the time," Mom explained to the neighbors. 16-hour days, weekends at the hospital. She barely has time to visit us, let alone date. We keep telling her that career success means nothing if you're alone. Emma's friend Lisa nodded knowingly. "I have a cousin like that. She's a lawyer, makes good money, but she's miserable. No husband, no kids. Just work and more work. What kind of life is that?" I took a sip of wine and stayed quiet. What they didn't know was that my obsession with work had led to developing a revolutionary surgical technique for children with complex heart defects. 3 medical journals had published my research, and hospitals worldwide were implementing my protocols. But explaining that would sound like bragging to people who viewed my career as a consolation prize. "The worst part is she could have been so happy," Emma said, her voice taking on that theatrical tone she used for maximum emotional impact. "She was engaged in medical school, remember David? But she chose surgery over marriage. Literally picked her career over love." Jake squeezed Emma's shoulder supportively. "Different priorities, I guess. Some people need constant achievement to feel worthy. We're lucky we figured out what really matters." The guests murmured agreement. Emma had married Jake right after college, had 2 beautiful children by 28, and now lived in a 4-bedroom colonial with a white picket fence. To everyone here, she'd won at life while I'd missed the point entirely. "It's not too late," Mrs. Patterson said kindly. "Rachel's still young and attractive. If she stopped working so much and put herself out there, she could probably find someone. Men don't mind successful women as long as they're not intimidating about it." "That's the problem," Emma's college friend Sarah chimed in. "Career women always think they're too good for regular guys. They want someone as ambitious as they are, but successful men want partners who prioritize family." I watched this dissection of my life choices while thinking about the surgery I'd performed yesterday, removing a tumor from a 6-year-old's heart while her parents waited in terror. The procedure took 11 hours, and when I emerged to tell them their daughter would live normally, her father had collapsed in gratitude. But to my family, that was just another day of being obsessed with work. "Rachel's problem is she thinks saving lives is more important than making a life," Emma declared. "She's so focused on being important at the hospital that she's forgotten what really matters. No husband, no children, no real family of her own." The living room full of guests nodded sympathetically. I was the cautionary tale, the woman who'd chosen wrong and was paying the price with loneliness. "I worry about her future," Mom said, accepting condolences like I was terminally ill. "What happens when she gets old? When her career ends? Who's going to take care of her? Emma will have Jake and the kids, but Rachel will have nothing but her work." Dad joined the conversation from the patio, beer in hand. "We tried to raise both girls with family values, but sometimes one goes astray. Rachel got these big ideas about changing the world, forgot that a woman's greatest achievement is raising the next generation." Emma beamed at the praise. "Exactly, Dad. I may not have fancy degrees or impressive job titles, but I have what really matters. Love, family, a home filled with laughter. That's success. The guests toasted Emma's wisdom while casting pitying glances in my direction. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment away from the systematic dismantling of everything I'd worked for. When I returned, the conversation had shifted to Emma's pregnancy announcement. "We're trying for our third," she revealed to delighted squeals from the women. "Jake wants a boy this time, but I just want to give our children what we had growing up: stability, two parents who put family first, traditional values." "That's beautiful," Sarah said. "So different from women who put career before everything else. Children need mothers who are present, not distracted by work." I thought about the thank you letters I received from families whose children I'd saved, the medical students I mentored, the research that would help countless kids in the future. But in Emma's living room, surrounded by people celebrating conventional success, those accomplishments felt hollow. "Turn on the evening news," Emma suggested as dessert was served. "Let's see what's happening in the world while we celebrate our little piece of paradise." Jake grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news station. The anchor was finishing a story about city budget allocations when the screen switched to breaking news. "We're interrupting our regular programming for a special announcement from City General Hospital," the anchor said. "We're joined live by Hospital Administrator Dr. James Wilson with extraordinary news about the largest private donation in the hospital's history." Emma rolled her eyes. "Boring hospital stuff. Can we change the channel?" But Mrs. Patterson was interested. "My grandson was born at City General. Wonderful hospital." The camera showed Dr. Wilson standing in front of the hospital's main entrance. "Today, I'm honored to announce a transformative $100 million donation for the construction of a new pediatric cardiac surgery wing. This gift will create the most advanced children's heart center on the East Coast." The room fell quiet as the number registered. $100 million. "The donor," Dr. Wilson continued, "is one of our own staff members, Dr. Rachel Morgan, whose groundbreaking work in pediatric cardiac surgery has saved hundreds of lives and revolutionized treatment protocols worldwide." I felt the air leave the room as my name echoed through Emma's living room. Dr. Morgan's generous gift will fund not only the new wing but also a research institute and training program that will train the next generation of pediatric cardiac surgeons, Dr. Wilson explained. "Her innovative surgical techniques have reduced mortality rates by 40% and are now used in hospitals across 6 continents." Emma was staring at the TV screen, her mouth slightly open. Jake had set down his beer and was leaning forward. The guests sat frozen, processing what they'd just heard. "Dr. Morgan joins us now," the anchor said as the camera switched to show me in surgical scrubs, clearly recorded earlier that day. "Dr. Morgan, what inspired this extraordinary donation?" My voice filled the room. "Every child deserves the best possible chance at life. This wing will ensure that no family has to travel hundreds of miles for life-saving cardiac surgery. The Research Institute will continue developing new techniques to help children worldwide." Mrs. Patterson was the first to speak. Is that your Rachel?" Mom had gone completely pale. "Rachel, is this real?" The news continued with details about my research, the international recognition I'd received, and quotes from colleagues calling me one of the most innovative pediatric surgeons of her generation. They mentioned the 3 medical journals that had featured my work and the invitation I'd received to lecture at Harvard Medical School. $100 million, Jake said slowly. "Rachel, how is that possible?" "Medical patents," I said quietly. "The surgical techniques I developed are licensed to hospitals worldwide. The royalties, accumulated over time." Emma was scrolling frantically on her phone. "There are articles about you everywhere. Forbes, Medical Journal, Time magazine. They're calling you a medical pioneer, and the surgeon who revolutionized pediatric cardiac care." The room remained silent except for the continuing news coverage. Dr. Wilson was explaining how the new wing would serve children from across the region, potentially saving thousands of lives over the coming decades. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "When would I have told you?" I asked. "During the lectures about how my career was meaningless. While you were explaining that I'd chosen wrong. Between the comments about how I'd wasted my life." Emma set down her phone, her face flushed. "Rachel, we didn't know. We thought you were just working all the time for nothing." "I am working all the time," I said. "I'm working to save children's lives." I'm working to advance medical science. I'm working to make the world better for families like the ones I treat every day. Dad appeared from the patio, having heard the commotion. Rachel, honey, we had no idea you were so successful. Successful? I looked around at the room full of people who'd spent the evening pitying my choices. You mean you had no idea I was wealthy? If I'd been saving lives but living paycheck to paycheck, would that have changed your opinion of my work? The question hung in the air unanswered. We're family, Emma tried. We love you. We were just worried about your happiness. No, I said, standing up. You were worried about your definition of happiness. You couldn't imagine that someone might find fulfillment outside marriage and children, so you decided I must be miserable. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. The same guests who'd been discussing my failures an hour earlier now watched in stunned silence. Where are you going? Emma called after me. Back to my empty, meaningless life, I said. The one where I save children's lives and donate $100 million hospital wings. As I drove away from Emma's perfect suburban house, I felt lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow the new wing construction would begin. Next month I'd start training the first class of fellows in my surgical techniques. And eventually fewer children would die from heart defects because of work I'd done while my family thought I was wasting my life. 6 months later, the Rachel Morgan Pediatric Cardiac Institute opened to international acclaim. At the dedication ceremony, a reporter asked if I ever regretted choosing career over family. I didn't choose career over family, I told her, looking out at the audience of medical professionals, grateful patients, and families whose children I'd saved. I chose to dedicate my life to protecting everyone's children. That feels like family to me. Sometimes the most meaningful life is the one other people can't understand.